Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's our favorite time of the week, taking a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. So the first knife today is pretty cool, and I think a little bit of a big deal. Kizer, the brand. The knife that kind of put them on the map. Some folks would say the sheepdog, but really before that, I'd say it was the Ray Laconico designed Gemini that kind of kicked the door down for Kizer in this country. And we've recently asked Kizer to update it for us with the new KnifeCenter exclusive button lock Gemini. Here it is in all its glory. I think it's fantastic. And it's gonna be pretty good value too, because in addition to the updated mechanism here, button lock rather than a liner or frame lock, which the other versions currently are, you also get 4V steel, really cool stuff, nice and tough. So you got a lot of edge stability and resistance to chippiness and that sort of thing during some heavier uses. Just under $120 for this knife. Very, very good value for what you're getting here. Like all Geminis, it's got a blade that's about 3 1/8 of an inch long, just over that 3-inch mark, and it is one of those kind of perfect everyday carry shapes. Drop point, full flat grind, thin enough so that you're not fighting any kind of overly thick geometry. This is just a great slicer, and even though it's a little bit on the, I wouldn't even say it's a little bit on the thinner side, even though it's not overbuilt, with the toughness of that 4V, you can still feel confident that this blade is going to withstand a lot of lateral stresses that, a more brittle stainless steel might not. Everything, of course, comes with their sets of compromises. As for the handle, we've got black linen micarta, contoured, feels very good. Also, this is the first time the Gemini has appeared with a deep carry pocket clip as well. Check that out, very cool. And as for the mechanism itself, this is using the same internal track as the Kizer Cormorant, the button lock that knife uses, which, if you're familiar with that at all, is a fidgety dream, and that continues, as you can see, with this knife right here. It's got that free-floating drop shut action, great flippability with that flipper tab right there, and just a phenomenal size and shape to incorporate into pretty much any everyday carry scenario. But make sure to check it out. Like I said, I think it is a good value, even if it didn't have the button lock there. Just this combination of materials at that price is a very good thing, and the button lock, KnifeCenter exclusive. You can only get it right here. So speaking of exclusives now, the Michael Zieba Six. We've got several new engraved versions that are exclusive right here. As you can see, this is, looks a little bit familiar. The MS3 and the MKM Flame. That is essentially this design, but this is just a little bit longer than those, with a blade a little bit over the 3-inch mark, like just barely over that 3-inch mark. But we've got the dagger style blade. These are 2 of the engraved options on the titanium handle, and Magnacut steel, which you can see there on the back. Stainless, unlike the 4V we just looked at, but still a great deal of toughness, especially on a nice narrow thin blade like this. That can be a very good thing. So this one right here, I'll start with the Vibe laser etching. You actually get a little bit of texture from the engraving process here. You can kind of hear it as I run my finger over it. So that's kind of nice. It's not just an aesthetic thing. You get a little bit of a functional upgrade as well. And these guys sit at about $395 price-wise. You got the very cool shape when it's folded up, especially looking at the back, because you see we've got the kind of devil's tail pocket clip, which is really cool, and the 2 tabs, one of them being a flipper tab for this dagger blade, look almost like horns coming out the top right there. There's something a little bit evil about that I kind of like, actually.
A bit devilish.
A bit devilish, yeah, it's a bit devil may care. This, yeah. What devilry is this? All right, we'll stop.
Witchcraft.
Flippy, check that out though. Really, really good action on these. Ball bearings, of course, great profile, easy to carry, a lot of capability, a lot of style, if this is in fact your style. We've also got something that I think is even more kind of signature Zieba with the skull and roses engraving on the front right there. Again, you do get a little bit of texture from it. It's a nice deep engrave. And from the back, looks not quite as devilish perhaps as the other one because there's less contrast, but still very, very cool. Interesting thing, and I'm finding myself doing, as I go to close this blade, because it's a dagger profile, the back is not double-edged though, but because it is a dagger-like profile, like, you know, you put your finger on it, it's like, ooh, it's gonna be sharp, but no, it's not. Actually, it's just, we're so used to feeling, or I'm so used to feeling, you know, a full thickness spine right there when closing, that when you don't, makes your mind pause for just a second. But no matter, don't hesitate. There's no pause needed here. These things are very, very cool. We don't have unlimited quantities of these, but I think we have about, how many do we have? Is it like 4? Or is it even more than that? I'm not even sure. A handful of different engraving patterns that you can check out. We'll leave a link to all of those below. So I mentioned MKM there for a moment with their Flame, which is their the smaller version of this knife that you can get at a pretty friendly production price point, at least compared to the US made ones here. Got another MKM to show you this week. This is the Hero. It is a very cool knife, but rather than me talk about it alone, we brought our friend Igor from Italy over to say hello to you guys.
Ciao, Jason. Ciao, guys.
Good to see you. Well, here it is. It's called the Hero, yes? Yep. Tell us a little something about this knife.
So Hero is our new knives, and is designed by Tommaso Rumici, an Italian designer and big friend. And so with this knife, we wanted to make something that would be really useful. So a really hard using knife, but keeping it fancy. So what we used in this case is M390 for the blade with different finishing. The handle is a full piece of titanium that is milled.
To make space for the inlay? To
make space, yeah, exactly, for inlay. Basically, the scale here is more an inlay. It's not an inlay because it's not into that, but right, yeah, it's an overscale. I don't know how you want to say that. Anyway, the other thing we had in mind, and it's something that Tommaso looks a lot in when he is doing knife, is to have a knife that is completely ambidextrous. So both right-handed and left-handed people can easily handle that. And
for that, you've got like my favorite kind of pocket clip, the tail-mounted clip there.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, in this case, it was probably the easiest way, or at least the best way to make it happen. You know? And so Tommaso works a lot with law enforcement things, and so he's very sensible to this kind of stuff of the ambidextrous. So when you're working in that kind, you don't need to understand if you're with left or right. You just operate, and that's it. So to make that, we have a backlock system, we have a double thumb stud, and the reversible clip. So that makes the knife completely ambidextrous. And if you guys think, yeah, that maybe it's a backlock, so it's a slow knife, it's something I cannot flick open, it's not true. It runs on bearings.
So is Viper making this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys remember we've shown the Viper turn on this channel a lot, and it has that same thing, the ball bearings, that nice flicky action. Yeah.
And the same handle structure, because also on that one you have on the first turn you have the titanium handle with the overscale on it. Yeah. So
yeah, it's super flickable. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing, obviously you have to take care when you're using the knife, and being ball bearings and quite a heavy blade, never close it in this position.
Yeah. Two hands, please.
Yeah, 2 hands, please.
Or maybe even. Well,
maybe you can.
Oh, actually, hey, that kind of worked. I did.
Yeah.
It worked the first time.
Yeah. Otherwise, you can help with your chest, for example.
Sure.
And then you can close it. So yeah,
I like
just to be sure and safe.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want anybody to cut this up.
What's cool about this is, the handle. Obviously, it's bold, I would say. And this section here is only 3 fingers for me, but it doesn't feel like it's kicking me off the end of the handle. It still has a very full feeling grip. And yeah, it's sometimes you have a knife with big finger grooves and your fingers aren't perfect fit for it. It becomes uncomfortable, but this works really well.
I can see the law enforcement aspect too, because it kind of angles the blade down a little bit, so it's going to point really naturally. 4mm blade on this, you were saying?
Yeah.
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 High flat grind though, still very useful.
Yeah, M390. Different finishing depending on the handle materials. We have 6 different versions of handle materials, and we have 2 blade finishing. Let's say we decided to make the one with G10 and my Carta handle a little bit more, I would say, rough and tough.
Rugged, yeah. So those come with the stone washed finish.
Yeah, stone washed finish.
And the fancier ones, satin.
Yeah, exactly. The carbon fiber and the Santos wood one comes with the satin finish that I think match.
Yeah. This is a really good piece of Santos too. Like I love the grain in that one. Looks great.
And being a wide handle, you can
see a lot of it.
Yeah, you can see a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes when you have small wooden handle knives, you cannot really see the grain in sometimes. So in this case, you can really appreciate it and enjoy it.
Yeah, that feels awesome. So yeah, we got the shredded carbon fiber and Santos wood, which is kind of like mahogany, similar. The G10s, you got your black. Even that black looks really classy.
Yeah.
And then a tan, you could dye these if you wanted a custom color here. And then natural and green micarta. Yeah. Yeah, very cool, very rugged. Pick them up right now.
Always good to see Igor. I'm glad he was able to come out for that video. He had some other stuff going on in the States too. He wasn't here just for that, but prices on these knives, G10 and micarta start about $280, $290 for the wood option, and about $315 for the carbon fiber. Continuing the theme with large Italian tactical folders, we have another one right here. This is the Fox Eastwood Tiger. New versions of this available now, including a nice inlaid version, but this one is, as you can see, the more blacked out version. $400 for this knife, and for that price, you are getting a very premium steel here, S90V, 3 3/4 of an inch of it, and a little bit on the thicker side too. So a lot of edge retention right there. And we talked about toughness a little bit earlier. S90V is not the toughest steel out there by a long shot, but you do have some extra thickness here on the blade stock to kind of counteract that a little bit. So you get long edge retention and hopefully a good bit of strength as well. Nice black coating on this titanium frame with some blue, subtle blue accenting pieces as contrast. You can see a little bit more of that blue on the backside with the pocket clip and the back spacer, of course. Frame lock flipper, as you could also see from the back. And of course, we are dealing with ball bearings in the pivot right here, so you've got that nice ball bearing action. And flipper tab, actually all the corners are crowned on here, which is, crowned spines and such is a kind of what we think of sometimes as a typical Italian trait, even though this one does not have a crown spine on this particular knife. Still flips just fine. I was worried maybe it might be a little slippy, but worked just great. Plenty of length on this handle for my slightly larger than average hands. Very nice flare on the back to provide some retention from it slipping forward. And of course, you've got the flipper tab as a finger guard against it moving backward and your fingers walking up on the edge. Very cool blade shape, obviously tactically inspired, but that's going to be a great utilitarian big blade on any day of the week too. I could kind of say the same thing about this next fixed blade. This is the Tops MPAT. Just about a 5-inch blade, not quite, of 1095 high carbon. And to me, this knife is very, very clearly inspired by like the classic stacked leather handled pilot's survival knife. You know it from Ontario these days. Very clearly to me looks like an interpretation of that and came out really good. American made, price on this $175. You've got a, what do we want to call that? It's technically not, I can't call that one color because it is kind of beige, but you have flecks of black in the coating right there. Has a kind of a cool, almost like a sandstone vibe to it, and I really like that. Way more interesting than a simple black or gray coating, so very cool. We've got the straight clip point profile. Tip looks like it sits just a hair below the center line, I would say. And then of course the dual fullers to reduce weight and help with balance without affecting the rigidity of the blade. too negatively. Micarta handles. Slim was kind of the order of the day here. In keeping with the kind of pilot survival theme, they didn't want something that was overly bulky, something that was going to be very easy to have strapped to your gear. Something's too bulky, might leave it behind. It's not what they wanted with this. Plenty of traction thanks to the deep grooves here, though. So as opposed to like a hand-filling ergonomic grip, they went for the security and portability afforded by that extra traction. Length on there is pretty good. If you've got, I'd say, truly large hands, it might be a little tight for you, but for me, I think it's just fine. Nice beak on the back for retention, and then a point at the back for smashing if needed, right behind the lanyard little hole right there. It's a hole, it's just not a circular hole. I was about to call it something different, but you know.
It's an oblong.
Oobleck. Anyway.
Different thing.
We just, like, do you guys care that we just say words anymore?
It's not like they can do anything about it.
Well, anyway. Let's look at the sheath, shall we? It is typical Topps high-quality Kydex. Clicks in nicely, and you've got a retention strap here with, and I don't know if this is a branded or a off-branded pull-the-dot snap or not, but it does the same thing. You cannot pull it open except in the one direction that the tab allows, so that's nice. And then you've got two kind of J-style hooks here at the back for belt carry, and I'm assuming Topps is usually pretty good about making their whole pattern Tech-Lock compatible, so you can use different stuff if you want. Maybe it's a small Tech-Lock in this case. Look just a bit off on the standard. It doesn't fit a small either. Curiouser.
So get yourself a T-clip.
Yeah, these aren't going to be Tech-Lock compatible, but a Civivi T-clip will work very well because that center dot is going to be a slot, so you'd be able to use that quite effectively. And those are very affordable too, like less than $10. So if you want something different like that, that would be your best bet. And then you've got your survival whistle there as well. There you go, Topps and Pat. All right, next we have a new Fallkniven fixed blade, which is unfortunately not something I get to say too often. Love these guys. This is the G1Z Garm Fighter. About 210. It is a double-edged dagger, which is one of the first things that you'll notice immediately that is kind of different from what they normally do. But it's not the only thing that's different from what they normally do on their fixed blades. For one, the bevels or the primary grinds on this blade are flat, not convex, which is interesting. So we've got flat grinds with a secondary bevel right there. To be fair, it is pretty complicated to do a convex ground double-edged, or a double convex ground double-edged blade like this and have everything line up super perfectly, especially on a production level standpoint. So I'll give them a little bit of a pass right there, but you know, come on guys. No, just kidding. The final thing, or the third thing that is very different from their normal kind of mode of operation, 20 CV steel, as opposed to their VG10 or their powdered 3G steel. How about them apples? So lots of edge retention. Blade length is 3.5 inches and sharpened length maybe about 3, I would say, more or less, which would give you about 6 sharpened inches of 20 CV steel there to work with. So plenty of edge retention if you're using this in a utility fashion. Of course, this is not designed first and foremost for utility. I think you know what this is made for. As far as boot carry, which you might think of this as a boot knife, the sheath that it comes with is a belt carryable sheath. So you might have to do some digging, some custom work, or some modification if you wanted to use this as a boot knife. But the sheath is very typical of what they typically do typically. As I struggle with the sheath, sorry.
Typical.
It's so typical. There we go. Sorry, I didn't pull it taut enough. So there you go. That is the sheath, very compact package. That's always been a nice thing about Fallkniven's sheaths across their lineup. They're not too bulky on the belt. Full length tang on this and over molded handle. No protruding tang on the back like you might see on the F1 or similar knives, but you've still got that same level of quality for sure. All right, next up we've got several four new Kershaws to take a look at. The first is a new battle song. This is the Moonsault, S-A-U-L-T, like Moon Assault. What are they trying to, going after someone there? This is kind of similar, of course, to the Lucha, as you might expect, especially considering the price is not too dissimilar either. We're about $150 for this knife. And in case you were wondering, in fact, I will pull out a Lucha here by way of comparison. As you can see, there's a little bit more material on the new Moonsault than on the Lucha. As such, it's going to be a little bit heavier, not by too much on the stated specs. It's like 5.9 ounces on the Lucha, 6.1 for the new Bally right here. You've also got a stone-washed finish on the steel handles here as opposed to the more bead-blasted finish on the Lucha. So it's a little bit style, might be the difference you choose between these two. If you want something with a little bit more weight, again, minorly more weight, the Moonsault could be the thing. And let's see, actually closed up. Never try to close two Ballies at the same time, folks.
On camera.
Pure danger. Little bit more of girth, shall we say, on the handle design, which could affect the control of it if you're doing your tricks, of course. That, of course, was not a trick, of course. But specs otherwise pretty similar. 14C28N stainless steel blade. If just like the Lucha, if you're the kind of person who likes to use a balisong as an actual cutting implement, you've got a great style or a great shape for everyday use here too. Kind of an elliptical shape, full flat grind, good steel as far as I'm concerned. And there you go. KVT ball bearings, just like the Lucha. Like I said, everything's pretty similar. Just kind of a new variant or a new sub-variant, if you will. Let's not talk about that. Cool knife. Next up, we have the, what's the name? Oh, that's the Lucha tab. No wonder. The Noventa, a KVT ball bearing flipper. This comes in about 65. We've got a D2 blade, about 3.3 inches long, and this kind of stylish, sci-fi inspired. I always think of these as like H.R. Giger-esque handle style. They're kind of still doing a little bit of that, and you've got that in spades right here. My favorite part of this knife, though, as I close it up, we'll get to the rest of it there, is the pocket clip. It is not quite deep carry, but check out the mounting position here. Single screw from the back. It actually goes through the back spacer and then captures the clip. And it's reversible too. Loosen the set screw essentially, right? I'm assuming it's a set screw actually. I don't know if it actually goes through the clip or not. It probably does, but I haven't taken it apart to confirm. But loosen the screw there, slide the clip out, flip it, slide it back into the slot the other way, and there you go. Fully ambidextrous clip, which is very cool. As for the rest of the knife, it is a stainless steel handle with a frame lock, KVT ball bearings as mentioned, and a very subtle kind of rear top flipper tab right here. Takes a little bit of getting used to, but not actually. Bear with me, this makes sense. In your mind, in my mind anyway, when I first did this, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be weird. Then it wasn't. So, take that with a grain of salt, huh? Very clean profile when open, nice slicey shape. Good steel with the D2 at that price point. Very cool. This next one of this new batch, though, I think is my favorite, and that is the Lucid flipper. It's an assisted opening knife, and the materials are definitely budget-oriented. We're talking a $39 knife right here, but the design, I think, is spot on. Whether you're looking for a good introductory knife for someone, or whether you're looking for a good disposable knife, if you're typically used to higher-end stuff, really cool option right here. 3.2-inch blade, 8CR steel, really cool shape. It's not technically, well, actually, technically, what do we want to call it? It's not a straight clip point. There is a hint of curvature to this right here. So it's a stylized drop point with a high flat grind and a nice swedge along most of the spine there. Very distinctively Kershaw at this point. Like they've kind of staked out a style that this is sitting right at home in recently. Stone-washed finish. It's going to help hide scratches over time as you use the blade. As far as the handle, it's got some style, but it is very neutral overall. GFN in blue on the front side, stainless steel frame lock on the back, and a little GFN pivot collar or pivot surround as well. And semi-floating backspacer, also in that same matching blue. Deep carry pocket clip, which is reversible. It's not inset into the backside here, but you do have flush mounted screws, which is quite nice. And if you were to reverse it, it actually would be inset in the GFN there on the front. But yeah, just a great usable shape overall with that fast assisted opening flipping action to go along with it. All right, so we started our new batch of Kershaws with kind of an astronomical theme. We're going to end the same way. The Kershaw Interstellar, a manual OTF. Not the first manual OTF that Kershaw has done, but is a little bit larger than that previous knife, which the name is escaping me here at the moment. But this knife right here has a 2.7-inch blade, Tanto style with partial serrations, and the price here is about 45 bucks. For that, the steel is 8CR. It's got a very distinctive look to it, some fullering going on, and some interesting kind of milled style points there along the back. Looks pretty cool, and going to be a good utility knife overall. Plenty of length on that handle for a heavier grip when needed, but still feels like a very controllable handle overall. Those handles are covered with black GFN over top the stainless steel, and you simply push that button down and manually retract. And there's no kind of partial stop points along the way. It's all or nothing, so to speak. It's one area where the size kind of works against it a little bit. On the smaller version, the spear-pointed version of this thing they've done before, of this mechanism, I should say, push, and it's one easy motion with your thumb. With this, I'm finding myself having to, man, if I really try, I can get the whole travel done. But if I'm just picking it up and going, I kind of have to stop and adjust and push the rest of the way. Kind of interesting. Deep carry clip on the back of the knife right there, single position, and a bottle opener. So it is a multi-tool, as we all know, of course. Pretty nice. A nice implementation of it, though. I would say it doesn't get in the way at all. You can even still push on the back a little bit, at least because of this kind of curve down here. Not going to be as comfortable as something with a full, but I didn't plan that at all. It just happened. I'm sorry.
We don't play names.
But it's still not bad. Like these sections aren't really poking you too bad. That's pretty cool. Very neat thing. If you want an OTF that has springs attached, however, that's not a manual, check out this latest batch of Heretic Manticore S's. The smaller version, of course, being the S part of that. $300 for this knife, and it has a Magnacut blade. We talked about that earlier too. Really cool stuff. Double-edged, just over 2.5 inches long. So it just misses that California compliant measurement for folks, but tons of edge here. You know, talking about a 2.5-inch-ish blade gives you about 5 inches of sharpened edge because you are double-edged right here. So really good edge retention and really good toughness as well from that Magnacut, in addition to being stainless. Very cool. Aluminum for the chassis. You've got a ball bearing there at the back as sort of a glass breaker point, and a nice nice chunky milled pocket clip right there. Doesn't get in the way though of this otherwise small knife. Good action, very satisfying action for sure. Just a great little small everyday OTF with a very cool steel on top of things. Speaking of Magnacut steel, probably one of the hottest releases from SHOT Show earlier this year was the new Magnacut versions of the Hogue Deka, and we've been getting them in. We've been filling pre-orders for a good while at this point, but it seems we've finally caught up because now the stonewashed versions of the Magnacut Dekas, we have some on the shelves right now. Both blade shapes, we've got the clip point and the modified Wharncliffe right here, both in that Magnacut steel, both with a really nice stone-washed finish, and with the synthetic handle scales as well, blue and black, of course. So this knife, well, these two examples I gotta show them together. So especially with the clip point version of this blade, the Deka has always been pretty highly or pretty nicely matched up to something like the Benchmade Bug Out. In terms of price and quality, and now with the new versions here with the lighter weight injection molded scales versus the G10 of the original models, and especially with the blue handle option, the comparison has never been more appropriate, never been more obvious. Spec sheet crown for the ultralight factor, the Bug Out still takes its 1.8 ounces versus 2.1. In the hand, you're not really going to notice the difference, let's be honest. They're both very lightweight and very capable. Hogue's crossbar lock is my favorite in the industry, if I'm honest. I've said it before. It's just super smooth, tuned perfectly out of the box. Even though that one had, when I flicked it really hard, there was just a hint of stick right there. But having used these for some time, that's definitely going to break in. The handle scales are a little bit more rigid than the Bug Out, although you can still get a little bit of flex out of them if you try. And overall just feels like a phenomenal product, because it is, quite honestly. Price on these, about $127.50 for these uncoated versions. You've got a deep carry pocket clip here, unbranded, so it's more subtle than the branded non-deep carry clip that the Gen 1 versions of the knife came with. Little cleaner screw pattern versus that Gen 1 as well. Overall, man, they knocked it out of the park with these knives. And last, but certainly not least, we have another new fixed blade, the Smith & Sons Spur. A straight-backed, kind of bird and trout style knife is how I would describe this, about $139.50 I should say. AEBL stainless steel. The knife, of course, is made in Louisiana by the good folks at Smith & Son. It's really cool. In addition to, the pretty apparent hunting mission of this knife, I also think it would make a fairly good EDC, and that's thanks, in this case, to the sheath. You can carry it vertically on your belt, as is typical, but you can also, because of this loop arrangement, very easily carry it cross-draw, horizontal on your belt, whether across the front of your body or small on your back. Some folks like that. Really nice. Makes it easy to keep more out of the way than a bigger fixed blade with a vertical sheath. And also, when you head back outdoors, where its obvious home is, it's a great way to carry a smaller companion fixed blade, along with a larger knife, potentially a chopper. Cross draw on the front of the body right there. I've always been a fan of that methodology. The construction is perfect. The burlap micarta handles on this one I think are especially nice, but there's a couple different burlaps and micartas and G10s right now. I love the full flat grind on this knife. I love the aggressive finger guard here. I know some folks can be a point of contention, but I like it, especially on a little knife like this that might be employed in very slippery situations. I like that added degree of safety built in. It's awesome. It's a Smith & Son. What can I say? Good stuff. Check them out. They're good folks too, so check out their whole lineup if that is not to your liking. That is it for this particular week. Make sure to let me know your favorites down in the comments, and to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And as always, of course, if there were any specs missing that you want to know about, you can find all that full info at those links as well. While you're at our site, don't forget about our Knife Rewards program, because if you're buying one of these knives, at least it's going to be a good thing to earn some free money to spend on your next ones. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we're signing off. See you next time.